What is going on, you guys? I am actually bringing you guys a little preview of this expansion I've been working on for Armada, and I just want to talk to you a little bit about it. I'm going to give you a little preview of it today. I'm calling it the Nunchuck expansion. It's the interim term. I may end up sticking with that. I may not. A lot of the names for cards in here are still kind of pending, but I wanted to give you guys a preview of what I've been working on. And I just wanted to talk to you today a little bit about this expansion. So this is a homemade expansion. This is nothing official. So if you're just tuning in here thinking that there's been some Armada news, there's not. And that's why I'm actually coming to you with a preview right now. We've got over a month until Gen Con. So it seems like, unless they surprise everybody and give us some kind of early article, it seems like there's going to be no news for still at least another month, and then whatever they do announce, maybe 6 months before it comes out. So we have a long time to go with nothing new to play with. So I'm going to try to get this expansion out before Gen Con, because I'm making a lot of progress on it. And this will be available as like a free download for everybody. So this obviously I'm not going to charge, but yeah, I'll put the files out there and you guys can download them. If you want to play with them, you can. Obviously, it's not going to be tournament legal. This is just a homebrew expansion. There's plenty of homebrew expansions out there already, so it's not like it's not like there's any like I am doing anything original like that hasn't ever been done before. But what I am doing is I'm putting it all together as a set. So everything in this expansion has a common theme. So I want to talk to you about what the Nunchuck expansion is all about. Well, there's two main themes for the Nunchuck expansion. The first theme is trying to have ships play in a way that they didn't used to play before. And so what I did is I kind of went through every ship in the game, and I'm looking at the roles and the way that they perform and thinking, well, what is something you would never do with this ship? And is there a way that we can give you an option to do that, to change the game a little bit? And a lot of, I'd say about 85% of what's in this expansion is doing that. The other theme in this expansion is that to limit like creep and power creep and things getting out of control, like broken combos, every single card in this expansion is a title. It is just titles. And it's lots of titles. There's going to be many titles for every ship. So there's a lot of cards in this expansion. I don't have an exact number yet because I'm not done, but it's high. A lot of ships have at least 4 titles. Most ships have at least 4 titles. A lot of them have 5 for every single ship in the game. So there's a lot of variety bringing that this I think could bring to casual games for those who feel like doing it. And of course, if you're not up to this sort of thing, that's fine too. But I'm going to give you a little preview of some of the Empire titles that I have been working on. So first up, let's look at the Panther. And all of these names of the titles are subject to change because I don't know exactly, like, oh, well, there was some Legends ship from some comic book in 1984 where the name Panther was already taken or something. I don't know. So the names are all subject to change, and I'm going to be putting more of these up on Patreon. Like if you're one of my patrons, you're going to get more feedback on, like, because I'm going to need help with some of the names, because some of the names are definitely placeholders, and some of them may be able to go in as is, and some of them are more placeholders. But the Panther is. I wanted to address the speed with the Victory Star Destroyer, especially the Victory 1, because I feel like the Vic 2 is in a pretty good spot right now. It has a lot of things that it can do, but the Vic 1 doesn't gain as much access to those cool things that the cool new toys that the Vic 2 has gained access to with its blue dice specifically, whether it's disposable capacitors or the new heavy ion emplacements. It just doesn't have the same tricks that the Vic 2 has. And all of the new stuff that has come out hasn't really helped the Vic 1 nearly as much as the Vic 2. So I wanted to give a title that is specific to a particular class. So this one is Victory 1 only. And it just says that you have a top speed of 3 and the value would be, 0, 1, 0. So not a huge change to the Vic, but it does give it that chance to go speed 3, which means you could deploy it at speed 3. And it's again, it's the same movement as speed 2 has, you know, the 0-1. It's just adding an extra click with no ticks on the end, so you can get a little bit further. And this is still going to let you work with Gergerod. It still means JJ is going to be great with it. Still means if you take a nav command, you're still probably going to want to do that because at some point you want to slow down. But it's a way for you to, because you're so black dice heavy, it's a way for you to get into into the fight a little quicker. But at the same time, you know, since the Vic 2 I don't think really needed the help with that, Vic 2 did not. Doesn't have access to this one. And I put this one at 6 points, considering you know, that going from speed 2 to speed 3 on like a Vic that's already potentially pretty tough, and it could be outfitted with Minister Tua, and you know that could potentially make it a lot more dangerous. So I figured 6 points was appropriate. Next is another victory title. This one is called Gravitron, and again, names are subject to change. Squadrons at distance 1 of you have heavy squadrons, all squadrons. So this is giving the Vic a little bit more of a support role, something that it's, you know, like, granted, it's, you know, Vics have been carriers for a long time, but this one's giving all squadrons at distance 1 of you heavy. Now this also applies to your own, but this is specifically for, you know, a victory to be able to fly into the middle of stuff and just have everybody disperse. Gravitron was the name I came up with based off the old Carnival ride. You know, just basically that it's messing with everybody's sensors and allowing people to escape. So I don't know, maybe Gravitron isn't the best name for it, but the idea here is that it can, the functionality that this one can do is that it can, it's tricky because you put this on a different ship and it would have been, you know, it could be overpowered. But the Vic is so slow that being able to fly it in, you know, at range 1 of a big cluster ball of squadrons is not that easy. So that's why, you know, that's why doing this as titles, I'm able to get away with certain things that if you did it as like crew or like officers or things like that, you'd have way more things to consider for balance. So when you know, doing a specific title, you're able to balance it against that individual ship's limitations. And since the other, you know, that Panther title did increase you to speed 3, don't have to worry about it overlapping with this one, since the only way you could get speed 3 with that Vic was with that other title. So this is a different title. Don't have to worry about you speeding up too fast. Still, also, I mean, but this also makes you have to think about, you know, nav tokens even more, because if you do get to where you want to be, like maybe you only have a couple of squadrons and you want to give all of their squadrons heavy. You know, and then strategically position yours just outside for after you move to, you know, to lock them where they are and get your stuff away. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff you can do with this because it's a double-edged sword. So I think this can really be kind of interesting. And the fact that you're a medium base means distance 1 of you is just a little bit bigger than if it were a small base ship. And at 6 points. Next up, I'm going in, I think in order of release here. So the Victory was first. I think we have Gladiators coming up next. Yes. I might have shown this one early in a live stream a while back. So some of you may have seen this one already. This is the Eager Hawk, and this one is cost 4, so it's a little bit cheaper for the Gladiator. After you deploy this ship, you may perform a speed 1 move. So one of the things that I was looking at was, you know, certain positions. Like this one actually drew a little bit of inspiration from Star Wars Legion with the Scout mechanic that was revealed recently. And the idea is that, you know, I'm gonna deploy stuff, but this guy gets to move out just a little bit further. And this gives a ton of different things to the Gladiator. There's a ton of just different ways that you can make this work. For one case might be that you want to deploy everybody kind of in one section of the board. Maybe there's asteroids all over here and you want everybody kind of right in the middle. But you don't always have room for that. So maybe you deploy this guy early. You know, maybe he's like your second ship. And then he moves up out of the way, and then you have room for somebody else behind him that you wouldn't have had room for otherwise. Another option is if you get ambush, you get the ambush zone, and so now you have to deploy farther forward. You can actually now take him out of the ambush zone. So that's why I came up and said Eager Hawk. Eager Hawk doesn't sound like an Imperial name, but it kind of reflects like he's ready to move, he's ready to spring, and he's ready to fly. And so that was the idea. He's so eager, he's moving. But this can potentially get you a little bit closer to enemies. And then the fourth thing too is if you deploy him first, your squadrons can potentially deploy that much farther out. So it's 4 is kind of in the middle of as far as price ranges for titles go. You don't see a whole lot of really expensive, like you don't see a lot of stuff that's 10 or more. So 4 is just around in the middle, a little below middle. But because in a regular battle, this might not be that great, but this was a way to try to get people to think about not picking Demolisher, because that's the #1 gladiator title, and this gives you so much utility. And this is a great support gladiator because of the deployment support. And so that was one of the other areas I looked at a lot with this expansion. And not every ship, but a lot of ships do have one of the titles that impacts deployment. And so this was that one for these guys. Next up is Seraphim. Another role gladiators are never in, usually, is carrier. Maybe a little bit when Wave 1 was out, and that's because we only had 2 ships, so gladiators may have done some squadron commands from time to time. But ever since, but not since then have gladiators ever really been in a carrier position. So here I wanted to make one that could still offer something that wasn't already available. So this one costs 5. It's potentially a little more valuable. And the Seraphim saying instead of activating a squadron, you may restore 1 health to it. So again, if however many squadrons you're activating, whether it's 1 or 2 or however, instead of activating that squadron, you can restore a health to it. So it takes the place of one of your activations. Or you could do both of your activations. So if you were going to hit 2 squadrons, maybe you're going to restore 1 health to them instead. And this is also a way to have you, taking your squadron command. Maybe you've got 2 carriers, but only 2 squadrons left. When they can both do squadron commands, this guy can issue a heal to a squadron, and the other one can actually then activate them afterwards. Or maybe the other guy activates them, they shoot, and then they move back in range of this gladiator. And Seraphim, just as it's an angel, healing. Sounds more like a name that the rebels might use, but Imperials think they're good guys too. Let's go on past the gladiators. I think we're looking at ISDs now, and ISDs is going to be tough because ISDs just got a lot of love. But I took some different approaches with ISDs, and this is one ISD title. It costs 6. It's a little on the expensive side, but it has a cool ability, and it's something I think is never taken advantage of, and that's rear arcs. So Blindside says, when attacking from your rear arc, the defender cannot spend defense tokens. Now, that's pretty, that ability by itself, just the defender cannot spend defense tokens, is incredibly strong. But the thing is, this is only from your rear arc. Now, the thing is that this can also apply to a couple of different scenarios. For one, this can apply to squadrons that try to get behind you. And the theme here is that this guy can flash his engines and disrupt stuff that's going on behind him. Now, the rear arcs aren't that strong to begin with. So, you have that going for you already. But this also can work against squadrons getting behind you. You especially if you're one of those ISDs, you roll 2 black against, like an A-wing ace that's behind you trying to hit you with a black die. You do a flak back, you get 2 damage. They can't brace or scatter. Say goodbye to Shara Bey or Valen Rudor or Tycho Selchu or Darth Vader. Well, Darth Vader couldn't scatter anyway, but he could brace it to 1, and now he can't. Or Suntir Fel or any of them. So, so this also works with with squadron, but also the other thing is that ISDs can potentially be pretty fast. how many times have you seen somebody trying to get out of the ISD's front arc and they sweep in like around the side? Well, now they have to be careful. Are they going to sweep in too far behind? And now they take your rear arc. Also gives new value to Spinal Armament, because Spinal Armament, while yes, it increases your front arc, it also increases your rear arc. So there's some synergy there. Again, the idea is ISDs don't ever really care about the rear arc. I wanted to give a different way to play ISDs. Maybe you don't care if you shoot right past somebody because now it can combo with something else. It's just an option. 6 might be a little too much. It's still, these aren't final yet, but these are the working drafts that I have right now. Speedy. Again, focusing on the speed of the ISD and trying to take advantage of that. Now, this one's a very expensive title. This one's 8, so you have to think you have to think kind of hard before you put this title on your ISD. After performing your first move of each round, you may spend a command token to perform a speed 1 move with no yaw. So it's almost like engine text for an ISD. You can't turn. And I said first move because, obviously it would create its own infinite loop. But also in case something else ever comes out. I wanted to future-proof it in case something else ever comes out to let somebody take it, like give engine text to ISDs. And also the other thing here is I wanted to, a lot of these titles I wanted to give the ships something to take advantage of command tokens. One of the things I would like to see is I'd like to see Tarkin and Garm Bel Iblis have a little more value as commanders, and so if there's somebody that's giving out tokens that maybe you don't really need so badly, then this is a way to potentially do that. So this guy, again, if you don't want to go too fast, but it is nice, and also this can help him ram. So this could be really dangerous, especially with hardened bulkheads. That's why I had to make it very expensive, because it's not just a free move, though. You have to spend a token in order to be able to do it. So it's tricky, and you're spending the token to do the move. So it's not like you're doing that command. So it's not like you're doing I don't get to do an engineering command and then also get to do this. No, you spend the token specifically for this. And plus it's after performing the move, so it's like you're done at that point. Oh, and by the way, I have an extra token left over. Let's do this. So there's 2 costs to be able to do an extra move here. It's the 8 points, which is strong. Maybe 3 costs, because that's the opportunity cost of not putting a different title on there. And also you have to have a token that you haven't used yet, which that's not too hard, but that'll give a little bit of extra benefit to maybe running somebody like Tarkin. All right, next up, we are going to jump to Wave 3. I think I have one of Wave 3 and 4 coming up. Oh, no, this is still Wave 2. We're at the Raiders. Oh, yes, this one is one of my most expensive titles. And again, focusing on roles that ships don't ever take, right? I said most of this stuff is focusing on roles that really don't have synergy. Raider as a carrier. You don't see that, right? After you finish activating squadrons, each squadron you activated with Rogue may suffer 2 damage to toggle its activation slider. So there's a lot here. So basically, if you activate Boba Fett, for example, Boba Fett can now take 2 damage. He can't brace this because it's not an attack, to be able to toggle his thing, and now he can still activate at the end of the round. That's huge. And the thing is, your rogues, you don't really want your rogues to take that much damage. They can manage it a couple of times, but and this one, I had to price this one really high, almost as much as paying for a whole nother rogue, because of the fact that if you have a token, you can hit a whole nother squadron. I mean, you might just be doing nav and just be getting tokens from Tarkin, or you might take, there's always that possibility that you could take the squadron command dial and also have a squadron command token and be able to hit 2 rogues at the same time. So I had to price this one pretty high. But this is a title that would make you consider using a Raider as a carrier. And not only that, using it as a carrier for ships that really don't need a carrier. So that's why it's so expensive, because you could potentially get an awful lot out of this. Now, keep in mind, you have to have those rogues close to here, so it is going to be a little bit predictable. It's not going to be a surprise to your opponent that you've done this. So you are kind of broadcasting your intentions when you do this. And so, you know, and also, you also know that any rogue that's down to 2 health or less can't use this ability anymore. So there's a little bit of broadcasting here. So while it may seem really powerful, I don't think it's too strong considering the low squadron value of the Raider. But again, you might want to spend more points and have a strategy where that Raider becomes a carrier. But at the same time, Raiders can be popped really quickly. So that's, you know, for a lot of other ships, this would never have been possible. But for the Raider, because of its unique, you know, how squishy they can be, how small their squadron value is, I thought it was possible. But still, 12 points is incredibly high. Let's look at Knuckle. This one's a little cheaper. And this one's a double-edged sword, so I kind of like this one. During the 3rd and 6th round, this ship must activate at the end of the squadron phase. So there was a couple of things that kind of inspired this one. And one thing that had a little bit to do with it was, you know, like your Governor Price and Bail Organa cards, you know, like saying, oh, this ship will go first, or this ship must go last, right? Well, if you're going at the end of the squadron phase, you're going like super last. You're going beyond every other ship, and now you're activating, you know, once the squadrons have all gone. So this could be potentially very valuable to a first player who wants to do that last in, first out with a Raider. But, and here's the key, is that it's a double-edged sword, because the 6th round is a time where I don't think you want to go last. I think you want to go first, because if you're still alive, you either need to try to finish off that last ship, or you need to try to move and get the heck out of there. So a lot of times that 6th round, if you're stuck going last, that means that you might die, and it won't matter. So a little bit of a double-edged sword, still overall mostly favorable. But there's another thing here too, and it's that Raiders can sometimes be outfitted as anti-squadron ships. You know, with the flechette torpedoes and ordnance experts, for example, you set up a re-rolling 2 black dice nearby in enemy squadrons. But the problem is, if you have just the one, like, unless you have a squadron screen to lock down those other squadrons, it can be tricky to be able to perform that shot. Now, they have another title that helps them to lock them in. But the idea here is this will also make this guy a good escort for maybe your flagship. When enemy squadrons are coming in, you just fly him near the flagship moves up to, like, you have this guy out in front, okay? The flagship moves up, enemy bombers trickle in. Well, or you're afraid they're going to trickle in, or maybe enemy rogues, for example, but they're not going to come near Knuckle because Knuckle has to go after them, even the rogues. So now he's going to be able to shoot them. Now he wouldn't want to use flechettes at this point, right? So it's a way for you to do an anti-squadron Raider without necessarily flechettes. So maybe even expanded launchers for that one squadron you've got to kill. So it just gives you a different approach to an anti-squadron Raider, as well as the possibility of a last in, first out. All right, let's see what we have next. It's a Gazanti title. So this one, I kind of like this one, because this one is another thing that generally isn't done. Part of my speculation for Armada's next wave was assault or attack flotillas. I think maybe the Dornian gunship will come in that format. And also, since we now have, flotillas can cap out at only 2, it's less, I think there's less danger of putting some emphasis or the ability to have a combat flotilla as an actual danger, because you can't be flooded with it at this point. So that's what inspired this guy, the combat flotilla. I call him Hellfire, and when at speed 0, increase your frontal armament by 1 red die. Okay, so that's there's a whole lot going on with that line right there. First off, at speed 0, you can't scatter. So, if you're at speed 0, you are a sitting duck. So you had better be, very, very careful. That's, about making sure that, about coming to speed 0. However, since if you put this on, your long range Gazanti, well, maybe you can afford to potentially get to a vantage point and set up at speed 0 and wait for somebody to come into your arc, and then you go ahead and shoot and then move. So you might have to make sure you bank a nav to be able to play this. This one implies a little bit of skill, though. But also, increasing your frontal armament by 1 red die is not that bad, because you're going to have, what, 2 red dice in the front? 3 if you had to concentrate fire? It's not that crazy, considering the cost, right? 8 points is almost as much as spinal armament. Only increases your front, and it's very conditional. But, it's a kind of a cheap ship. Could be kind of fun to increase that frontal armament. I like the idea of it. I like the idea of just setting up combat, a combat flotilla that can do some damage, and even with the 8 points, it'd still be kind of cheap. But fun. But I like the idea of messing with speed 0. Speed 0 is something that's not done a whole lot. Nobody really, well, not nobody, but few players routinely strategically use speed 0. So I wanted to add that. And we have an interdictor title here, and again, there's multiples of these. This is just a little preview. This interdictor title is called Chug. Again, name is subject to change. I'll be looking for feedback on Patreon for some of these new names. When attacking a ship with a lower speed than you may add 1 red die to your attack pool. So we've seen things that reference other ships' speeds before. This can factor in to the tractor beam stuff, but the problem is, and this is what makes this work, the interdictor has a top speed of 2. Yes, you can give them engine techs to get them a little bit, where they need to go quicker, but they have a top speed of 2. So this only works if you're attacking a ship at speed 1, or technically speed 0, but like I said just previously, almost nobody ever uses speed 0. Again, maybe if we change that, then that'll become more of a thing. But this is basically only going to work when somebody is speed 1, and they're going to know that you're coming. So again, it's it's not that great. One of the things that I was hoping, there's a lot that goes into this one. One of the things that I was hoping is that it would actually I was hoping it would potentially cause people to use a different type of interdictor, because everybody is always using, what's it called, the suppression refit, and nobody ever uses the combat refit. The combat refit actually has 2 red dice in the front and the sides, and the idea is that, if your front arc is obstructed, if the shot is obstructed, you can't take the shot. Well, if somebody's going very, very slow, and you're going, your max speed is 2, you're probably, if you're actually able to employ this effect, you're probably going to be pretty far from them. Chances are, if you're far from them, there's also that chance that attack might be obstructed. So, if you're taking a suppression refit, you wouldn't be able to take the shot in the first place. This, if you have the combat refit, this gives a little bit of extra incentive to taking that combat refit over the suppression refit, because now you'd have, since you had 2 red dice in that arc, now all of a sudden you can take that shot. In addition, you also get an extra red die. However, because you have disposable capacitors, it might not always be a thing. You can go either way with it. But I like the idea of getting the an extra red die if somebody wants to slow roll you, kind of punish people for going too slow, kind of punish people who want to sit on objectives and and do some different stuff. And also, this is a different role. Interdictors are there for support or to be tanks. They're not there to have firepower, right? Well, they can now a little bit, and this is kind of building on that. And they're definitely not known for red dice. So it's a little bit of a gamble. But that's why it's cheap too. But the thing that makes this really great, that the gamble here, is that you could, if you can line up that double arc, which all of their arcs are pretty good. If you can line up a double arc on a ship, then you can have 2 extra red dice. 2 red dice for 5 points is not half bad. couldn't make that work on every other ship. You couldn't make that work on a Raider with this mechanic because, you know, at speed 4 it'd be real easy to get it. So again, that's the advantage of being able to do titles specific to a ship's particular build and weaknesses and strengths. That's the last card for the preview for today. There's plenty more to come in the near future, so I will be coming to you guys with more of that in the future, just to kind of hold you over until Gen Con. You know, hopefully I'll have this out within the next couple of weeks, and if you want to print it out and, you know, play it in your local groups, let me know what you think. All right, guys, I want to thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, if you'd like to support me on Patreon, I would really appreciate it. I will be uploading all of these files to Patreon over the next week, so people can take a look at all of them, get an early, an early look. Maybe we'll do some renames because it's not locked in yet. So if you would like to maybe be contribute a name, you can do so on there. Additionally, I will have these all available on Crabbok.com when they're complete, so you can download them from Crabbok.com. I might put them in like a PDF for easy printing. I can, so you just print one sheet and you've got like 20 cards on it instead of having to do one at a time, something like that. But let me know what you guys think, and I want to thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and let me know what you think in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment to automatically be entered to win that big giveaway that's going on right now for X-Wing 2.0 conversion kits. 3 conversion kits I'm giving out right now, so you can enter to win one of those. And Lando is my homeboy. I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and have a great day.